Hi Aleister, this is like really, really awesome to actually be speaking to you, you know, actually finding time, you know, to actually be able to sit down with you. And again, thank you very much for hosting Remember the Plug event today. You know, it's really amazing for you to make your resources available, the stage, the LED, the lights, everything. Thank you very much for that.
It's our pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Yeah. So basically, remember the plug event is really about featuring some of the people who are influential in the technical industry across Africa, so that some other people on the continent can get to understand some of the ins and outs of the industry and some of the people behind some of the most influential work on the continent. So to just start off first, you know, I just want to know, just give us who you are, you know, just your name and a bit of your history where you grew up.
Okay, so my name is Aleister Kilby. I was originally born in the UK and I moved to South Africa in 1984 as a young child. And I spent obviously my youth in South Africa, so I feel like I've spent the best part of my life here, you know, from 1984 onwards. And I was very lucky that there was a local theatre in the town that I grew up in, which was Midrand, which is not a tiny place now, but it was a tiny place in the 80s. And I started working at that theatre at a very early age, and I got bitten by the bug of entertainment and live theatre. So when I finally left school, I went to work there on a permanent basis, and that's really where I started my career in that theatre, and grew to love theatre and the theatre industry and the live event industry as a whole. So from there, I went out on my own, like many people do. You go freelance, you try and do stuff. And I've continued to stay in the theatre, but every now and then I've kind of slipped into the corporate eventing world.
And I'm thinking first, before we get into the heart and meat of that, I just want some people, you know, like if someone was to basically talk to you and they've got like 2 minutes to kind of know like what exactly you do, what would you say?
So I started out, as I said, in a lighting position. I started out as an usher in the theatre first, and then I became a follow spot operator. From a follow spot operator, I became assistant stage manager, lighting operator. And so I was basically a lighting person. When I left and I went freelance, I was a lighting designer. And then I found that there wasn't enough work as a lighting designer at the current time in South Africa. So I kind of very accidentally fell into a position of technical director for productions. I was a lighting designer on a musical called Fame the Musical at the State Theatre. The production manager fell ill, and they needed somebody to step up and take that position. So I stepped up to take that position, and have sort of created my own niche in the market in South Africa to be the technical director for a lot of productions that come in from overseas. So now I am a technical director for franchise musicals, and I obviously run Splitbeam.
Gotcha. And for me, for as long as I've known you, it was always to do with theatre. You know, like for as long as I've known you, it was always like been like most of your passion from what I pick up from the outside, you know?
Absolutely. My passion 100% is theatre. As I said earlier, I sort of slid into the corporate eventing market for a little while, like most freelancers do, because that's where the money is. And I went and did some of those things. I took Samsung air conditioners around the country. I took washing powder around the country. I did all sorts of those horrible roadshows and stuff. But what I realized is I don't like that. And that was never good for my soul. I never had like a feeling of fulfillment from that work. Yes, I got paid, but I didn't want to have a life where it was about money. I wanted to have a life that was about filling my soul, and theatre is where I felt that. So I always say that I went back to my soul food, which is theatre, and I want to make a living doing what I love doing. So I'm one of those privileged people that they say never works a day in their lives because they enjoy it. My hobby is theatre, my life is theatre, my work is theatre. So
and now in your career, are there some of like the most memorable moments or some of the most memorable productions that you worked on?
Wow, I mean, obviously there's a few that string to mind straight away. I mean, for one, Chicago the musical is my favorite musical. It always has been. I love that show. I've done that show 3 South African tours of that show. I've done it in Japan. I've done it in Middle East. So I'm really feel very connected to that show. But one of my other shows that was my first big international Asian tour was We Will Rock You, the Queen musical. I started that in South Africa with I had done a few shows, but I hadn't done shows on that scale before. So it was my first big show as a technical director. And I learned a lot of what they say school fees from mistakes and things on that show.
Yes.
But I did that show on and off for 7 years, and I really enjoyed that show. Yeah. And I got to see some amazing places and meet some amazing people. So I really feel like that was the show that made me feel like I'd made it, you know?
Gotcha. And for some people who might not know the difference between theater production and like ordinary concerts, you know, what would you say are the key differences between the two?
So the key difference really between theater and live events for me is that theater has got to happen exactly the same every night, 7 or 8 times a week, and sometimes 52 weeks a year. So for me, it's a different skill because those people who are in the theater have to understand that that cue has to be right every day at the same time, at the same place. Whereas in a live environment with a rock band or whatever, it's a lot more fluid. And the band may change numbers and things may happen and you've got to go with those punches. And you get through the event and you get the adrenaline, the event goes away and you remember the good times. But with theater, you've got to do it every night. I mean, a lot of theater performers will say that, you know, anyone can sing in a movie, you know? But to sing the same song every night, 8 times a week, that's where the skill comes in. So it's the same for a technician, because as you're doing a show, you can't get complacent. You can't stop and stop thinking about it and start worrying about your bill for this or that or next thing. You've got to think and concentrate on the show and make sure that you're doing the best show every night. We always say that you've got to do the best show for that audience, you know? And then tomorrow is a new audience, and they deserve the same or better show, or, you know, the same show that the guys yesterday had and the guys tomorrow will have.
You know,
so that's the difference.
And for me in live events, one of my thing that I do to pump me up is like, today's show that I'm doing might be someone else's last show, you know?
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
So it's like when I go to work and I do a job, I'm just trying to make that memorable for someone's last show. And it's also someone's first show, you know?
Absolutely.
To make it
I mean,
for them.
The funniest thing about what we do as a career with the entertainment and things is that a lot of people say, you know, it's not life or death. You're not a doctor. You're not a nurse. You're not keeping somebody alive. But you can give them an experience they will remember forever.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And then apart from COVID, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
What are some of the most challenging things that you have faced in your line of work?
So look, I mean, I'll be perfectly honest with you. Splitbeam was started because I felt that in South Africa there wasn't a rental company specific for the theatre, okay? And that's why I started my company, to work specifically in the theatre. But what I chose the hardest part of probably one of the hardest industries in the world, because theatre is the lowest budget of any of the live events, and also live events in general are hard to make a living in. So what we found is I managed to find the hardest part of the hardest part to try and make a living. But that's because, as I said earlier, that's because that's what I have passion for. So that's why I do it. You have to try and make a living, but you have to balance that. But it is very tricky because theatre has always, since day dot, had the lower budgets, you know? They're not feature films, they're not big rock concerts. So it makes it tricky.
And also, just out of interest, how have you as a company and as a person been able to secure some of these high-profile productions, you know, or be able to be in the network of those, like, some of the top production in the world? Like, how?
So the thing for me is, I was very lucky. And I think a lot of people say, a lot of entrepreneurs and people say that life is about as much luck as it is hard work, okay? So I was very lucky, as I said, to get that first job as a technical director and meet some amazing producers, you know, in South Africa and work with them and get into a situation where they understand the benefit of what I can bring to the table.
Yeah.
And when you've built that trust with a producer, then they trust that you've got their best interests at heart. And then they obviously get international clients or whatever, and it becomes, and to be honest with you, the network in the world is not that big. So once you get into that network and after time you meet more people and you prove yourself over and over, then you become luckier to get to where you get to. So it's about meeting the right people. They always say it's a relationship business.
Yeah, yeah.
It's who you know, not what you know. I don't necessarily agree with that. It's who you know and what you know.
Yeah, true.
You know, you can know it all, but if you don't know the right people, you're not going anywhere. You can know the right people, but if you don't know it, you're also not going anywhere.
Exactly.
So it's a balance.
One day it catches up with you.
Absolutely. I don't, you know, for me, I believe that every day is a learning experience.
Yeah.
You should always be willing to learn, all right? And you should never be too scared to say, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
I think people who pretend to know how to do something because they're too scared to say they don't know, that's a flaw in their personality. They need to solve that and be able to say, I need help.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do this, you know?
Yeah.
I've done some things in my life that were very strange. Like I've mixed shows sound-wise in the Teatro and in the Durban ICC. I'm not a sound person.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know what I was doing. But in the situation that I found myself at that time, I had to mix that show.
Yeah.
So I did it. Now, I'm not saying that I'm a sound guy. I'm just saying that sometimes you just need to, I will phone people and say, how do you do this, and this? And help me through this because now I've got to find a way to make this happen.
Yeah.
You know?
And there's something across Africa, right? Like in Kenya, I was doing a job there for one of my clients, and then I was staying opposite an old theater. So I went over there. I did see like a really decent, good show. And then also in Ghana, I saw this other place. I think it used to be a theater, and the building looks amazing. Also in Zimbabwe, I've also gone through and watched a theater show. So from your understanding of the theater space in Africa, post-COVID, of course,
yes,
right?
yes.
Are there opportunities for some of these countries in terms of because you as a company, you've got proper, amazing equipment, right?
Yes.
But are there opportunities in the other African countries to also invest in such equipment?
I think there is. It just depends on what you are wanting to do. Okay. Like all those countries, as you say, look, let's face it, every country on the planet has some amazing theater, all right? It's whether you want to put on the big franchise show, the Phantom of the Opera, the We Will Rock You, those kind of things. If you want to do those kind of shows, the franchise West End Broadway shows, then you're going to need specific equipment. Then you must have a company like a Splitbeam to get that equipment from. If you want to put on something amazing but local, like South Africa has amazing local dance and local theatre shows, then you can do that with slightly less, I won't say less professional equipment, but slightly less expensive level of that equipment. You know, you don't have to have the latest and greatest, whereas for a certain franchise show, you will be told, I must have that. So I think there is a market for it. What I would say is I don't think there's a market for the whole of Africa to have a theatre rental company in each place. Gotcha. I would like to think that in Southern Africa, we could deal with a large chunk of Africa. The Middle East can deal with a large top of Africa. And you can get things in the middle, you know?
Gotcha.
But it does really depend on what is out there. And also, it requires there being designers that push the level of technical stuff that they want. So if you've got a great sound designer in Ghana, he's going to want better equipment. Yeah. If you've got a great lighting guy in Zimbabwe, he's going to want better equipment so that he can create his art.
Gotcha.
And that's what really we do, is we supply equipment for designers to help them create their art.
Gotcha.
And that's the main thing.
Yeah. And now we come to COVID-19. You know, like some people say there was no 2020, you know? And just of interest, how have you managed to kind of, you know?
So this is the thing. Obviously, we're part of a larger group of companies. Gearhouse South Africa Group is a big company, a big group of companies, and Splitbeam is just one small portion of that. So the whole thing took a big hit from COVID, went into business rescue. So straight away, we're already on the back foot, but we are being luckily protected by the by the business rescue systems in South Africa.
Yeah.
But then we started to fight. Now, the one thing about me is I like a good fight.
Yeah.
I'm not a physical fighter,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
like an argument or something. And I also like puzzles. So COVID-19 came to me as a puzzle, and we were like, we've got to find ways to get through this.
Yeah.
So there were a couple of key elements that I said to myself about Splitbeam is, one, we have to keep the staff employed for as long as possible,
Cool.
okay? Two, we have to keep the business open to employ the staff. Three, that we want to continue servicing our clients in the way that they're used to us. We don't want to suddenly put our prices up and start ripping people off.
Yeah.
So we've kept our pricing and everything the same. And what we're doing now is trying so hard to make sure that we just get turnover to pay the staff their salaries.
Gotcha.
Okay? So really the equipment now becomes almost a loss leader. The
Yeah.
equipment is only here so that the staff can get a salary.
Gotcha.
And that's the mindset that I set in the beginning to get through the initial part of the pandemic. Obviously, like many people, nobody knew how long it was going to take. We thought 3 weeks, then we thought 5 weeks, then we thought 3 months. So we had all these conversations as to what to do. This studio we actually opened exactly a year ago, so last May.
Okay.
We put it up, which was a couple of months into the lockdown, because I resisted for a while. The guys kept saying, let's build a studio, let's build a studio. Everyone's building studios. I was like, we are a live theater company. Studio live streaming is not really going to work because a lot of our clients didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
But we decided in the end we're going to do it anyway and
Gotcha.
try and put it at the right price, because I
Yeah.
think a lot of people built studios in South Africa. I'm sure worldwide a lot of people built studios, and they all started trying to make a lot of money in one day.
Yeah.
Everyone
True.
thinks suddenly we're a major TV studio, we're going to charge a fortune. So I said to my guys, we have to build a studio, but we have to build a studio that is cost effective. So as we built it and we worked out the pricing, I said, that's too expensive, that's too expensive, that's too expensive. And we pushed and we pushed and we pushed to keep the price as low as possible.
Gotcha.
So that we could find ways to do things. Because I've always been like that. I always like to do things in a cost-effective budget manner, because that's where theatre comes from.
Exactly, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, so we got into COVID and obviously we're still trying.
Yeah.
I've tried to diversify. We have the studio. We have a dome outside stage at
Yes,
the
I've seen
National
that.
School of the Arts,
Yeah.
which we're very happy that we're partnered with the National School of the Arts, because I also believe, like I've always believed at Splitbeam, that we're here to build the next generation of theatre audiences and
Yeah.
theatre technicians and performers. Like without the audience, there's no point in having the performers or the technicians, and vice versa. There's no point in having no performance and no technicians. So we need to be in a situation where we continue growing that through COVID, because what we can't do is go back to the early 90s in South Africa, just before the election and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Theatre took a real dive. There was no theatre, and it was very hard to make a living. So
Gotcha.
I don't want to go through that. I don't want COVID to be that thing we look back and go, this killed South African theatre for 10 years or 20 years, maybe
Yeah.
a generation. We don't know.
Yeah. So for you, what do you see as the future for theatre in Africa? What's your outlook?
I believe that theatre always has a future, you know, so I believe theatre will continue to grow. I mean, theatre's been around as the longest art form ever, I believe, you know. I mean, how can anyone say? We can all argue.
Exactly. Yes,
Somebody
yes.
probably painted on a wall in a cave before they did whatever, but they sat around a fire
Yes.
and they told stories.
Yes.
That's theatre, you know. They danced around a fire. That's theatre. So theatre's been around forever, and theatre will continue to be here because people will always need stories. What happens is theatre will change,
Yeah.
and we will have people doing online streaming theatre, and we'll have people doing live theatre, we'll have people doing pop-up theatre, and we'll have people doing all sorts of things, maybe stuff that we don't even know about yet,
Yeah.
that will continue to grow. So theatre will evolve, and theatre will always be there. And I hope that Splitbeam will evolve with it and keep up with the times. I have always been as passionate about a one-man play in a phone box, let's say,
yeah.
like they've done at the Edinburgh Festival, a one-man play in a phone box to an audience of one, as I am about a big show, because I believe that Splitbeam has to be here for all types of theatre.
Gotcha. Yeah, and you know, like you just saying that actually gives me hope of theatre, because like when I go into different African countries and I'm doing jobs and you see a place that used to be a theatre and how it looks, I'll just be like, you know, but from the way you're looking at it, I can actually see there is really...
Yeah, I mean, it's a very tricky time right now. South Africa's losing theatres quite regularly. The Fugard Theatre closed down recently. The Theatre on the Square is in deep trouble in Sandton. So there's a lot of theatres that are closing, and they will close. The Alhambra closed years ago, but they will also come back, and new theatres will be made, and things will happen. So I think there's also a life cycle, you know? There's going to be times where some theatres will close and some theatres will open. And it has to be about how the management adapt and change.
Gotcha.
You know?
Yeah. And for someone who would want to, in a way, achieve some of the things that you've achieved, you know, for someone who dreams one day of owning a company that works on theatre productions at the level that you do, you know, what would be some of your advice to them?
Well, my advice, first of all, is you have to be passionate about it. If this is not what your passion is, then this is not what you want to do.
Gotcha.
Okay? Because in the theatre, you're not going to become rich. You will never become financially rich. You will become, you know, rich in your soul or whatever, as we said earlier, but you're not going to be financially rich.
Yes.
You can make a good living. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. Some people make a very good living, but you do have to have a passion. If you don't have that passion, it's a very strange job, because it's a job that, as I said, it happens 7 nights a week, or 8 nights a week, you know, 8 shows a week, depending on what which show you're working on. And you will always get a crisis phone call. What we have in theatre is amazing, because we have what is always an emergency. You know, there's always an emergency at 5 to 8 when the show's at 8 o'clock. And you feel like the whole world's ended because somebody tripped the power or whatever the case may be. And you have to keep into perspective that we are entertainment for people, but we are also, like we said earlier, affecting their evening. They can upset their evening, or you know, they can have a bad experience. Like, so it's important that you understand that if you don't have a passion for it, you're not going to want to do this, because it's going to affect your life. I know, for instance, I've missed birthday parties. I've missed weddings. My wife has missed weddings. I've had people in my crew miss graduations. So you have to understand that your personal life is going to take a hit for this industry. This industry is not an industry for people who want to go home at 5 o'clock and turn their phone off. You know, I'm on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, like a doctor almost. But for entertainment. You know, ridiculous.
And just to talk about Splitbeam as a company, the services it provides, and maybe some of the markets you focus on providing services, so that for someone who doesn't know who Splitbeam is, they just have an overview idea.
So Splitbeam started out as a theatre specialist lighting company, okay, with me as a technical director that could go and do your event. But we always knew that we weren't going to be just a lighting company. I have a bit of a conflicted thing here, because I don't believe in the one-stop shop system, which a lot of rental companies do, which is they do everything, okay? Because I don't believe you can be a specialist in every department. So what we've done at Splitbeam is, unfortunately, because of the theatre market, we've realized that we can't only do lighting and somebody else does sound, because they actually don't have the equipment to do the sound for the theatre. So we ended up in a situation where we do lighting, we do sound, we do AV, we do rigging, and we do technical management and crewing, okay? What else do we do? I said AV, so that's pretty much what we do. But I always wanted to make sure that we didn't become that one-stop shop where the lighting guy mixes the sound. So we still have very clear different lines between each thing. A lighting guy is a lighting guy. A sound guy is a sound guy. An AV guy is an AV guy. However, COVID has changed that entirely. Look, but in the theatre market, we've always kept those lines, okay? Because it's important that we give the customer the exact service that they deserve. And also, the one thing to remember about what Splitbeam does is our customers are not necessarily South African. Because a lot of the shows come from overseas, we will deal with overseas designers who are overseeing that show for its South African leg.
Gotcha.
Let's say Riverdance, Lord of the Dance, Tap Dogs, any of these things. It's international people that are coming to South Africa, and they expect a standard that they would get in America. I mean, one of the things I found amazing was we did Elvin Ailey Dance Company from America. They came to South Africa, and the lighting guy from America said to me, "This is the best rental company for theatre he has ever seen outside of North America." Sure. And I was blown away. Yeah. And he said that I've never seen any other company with Altman clamps, with top hats and all the stuff, all the accessories that you would get on Broadway, but you can get it in Johannesburg. Yeah. And I believe that's what makes Splitbeam different, is we have the stuff that nobody else in South Africa has, because we understand our market. Yeah. And to deliver to our market, you have to have these things. But you will never rent them out to anything else but an international lighting designer for that particular production.
Gotcha. No, this has really been amazing. I really thank you, Aleister, for taking the time to just come and sit and talk to me like this and share this amazing thoughts, you know, and just the way you look at things, you know. And I think one key takeaway from me is just the clarity of, like, you know what, this thing, you need to be passionate about it. You know, if you're just doing the numbers, you know, you may not go the full way. I don't know if there's anything that you'd want to add on everything you have spoken about, but really for me, I'm like, this has really been amazing.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, there's nothing, you can talk for hours about all these things, obviously. Exactly. But for me, it's just, as I say, continue with the passion. Yeah. But make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons. Yeah. Okay, that's the thing. Is if the reason is wrong, then you're never gonna make it and deliver the service or the quality that you should.
No, this has been epic. Thank you very much, Aleister, for taking the time. It's been amazing.
All good. Thank you very much.
Cool, man.
Cool.